Well, ladies and gentlemen, he is back after a popular demand, and today's Simon is going to be teaching us one of my favorite subjects that I've always wanted to know, want to learn, which is Dharma. What is our Dharma, the purpose of our birth? So welcome and take it over. And I know you have a very, very important class for us, the next class we do.
Yeah, so a little preview. I've been seeing a lot of clients lately who are in business and who are asking about profession. And nowadays, it's very difficult to predict profession with astrology because people can do so many different
things. Yeah.
I mean, it's almost infinite. And but one thing that is very easy to see in the chart is this idea of whether or not a person is inherently suited towards entrepreneurship, running your own business, starting your own company, independence, or if you're better suited to working for someone else, if you don't want the headache and the hassle of hiring employees, paying insurance, taxes, all that stuff. And interestingly enough, as we were talking about earlier, big business schools like Harvard and other Ivy League business schools are paying millions of dollars in studies to see if there are tests or ways to predict which students are going to be successful as entrepreneurs and which students are going to be successful climbing the corporate ladder. And they still haven't figured it out. There's no predictor. I mean, I even listened to this story on NPR the other day. They can't figure out, it's not grades. Sometimes the best students flop when it's time to run their business, and the ones who are C students end up being the billionaires. So in Jyotish, there's a very simple way to look at it, and I guarantee you within 20 to 30 seconds, you'll be able to see which person is suited for what in the scale of complete independence versus complete dependence. And one is not better than the other, by the way. There are dependents who make $1 million a year.
Yeah.
There are independents who go bankrupt. That's another thing. But what are you best suited to do? Is we can judge from your chart.
No, I've had some Google employees and big company employees who have taken a reading, and they are making far more than any businessman can make.
Right.
You know, $500,000 just starting salary.
Yeah, it's incredible. So it's not about earning power. It's about what are you best suited for. And some people who are forced into being independent hate it because they prefer to be comfortable, to have a paycheck, a salary, and not have to worry about all this stuff. And other people who are forced into dependence, but all they think about is this great idea, and I want to start my own business, and I have an idea for venture capital, and like they're independent, they're adventurers. And they're stuck in a cubicle, even if it pays them $500,000 a year, and they hate it. So our job is to see what's your dharma, where are you on the spectrum? So we can talk about that.
Okay. Now that again, my favorite class again.
Okay. Well, yeah. Hopefully, if you'll have me back. You know, here's the other thing. Last time we talked about the D24 and how to judge not only that subchart, but any subchart using Ayer's method. And I gave you maybe 60–70% of that method because I didn't want to overburden the viewers with just one lesson. But I just wanted to add that there are additional techniques with the Ayer method, and perhaps the most salient, and if I could just kind of give an overview, here's what Ayer called a Shubha and Papa Sankhya Yoga, meaning, let's say you have Jupiter in the 8th house of whatever subchart, relationship subchart, education subchart, and you're running Jupiter. And Ayer saw, well, gosh, some of these people are actually getting married during this period and they're happy, and some aren't. Well, what he noticed was if there's another benefic in the 6th house, creating this Sankhya Yoga, then those periods will be good. Both let's say it's Venus in the 6th, Jupiter in the 8th, both periods will be good. Same thing for 212. Same thing for 311. So if you have Venus in the 3rd of, let's say, your education chart, then typically your education should end during a Venus period.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's Jupiter in the 11th, then that creates a Sankhya Yoga, a partnership. And now both Jupiter and Venus are going to be good periods.
Yes.
And so that's the supplement to the previous method that we talked about. And some people actually who know of this method commented in the comments, and I replied. And so I just wanted to, to make that known. And there are some other little exceptions, like Mercury in the 8th house of the D24 performed well. It's not a bad position, and so on. So, so those are just some supplements. And if you want to know more, you just Google Hank Friedman's website. Google divisional charts, Hank Friedman, and he has a document explaining the entire method, and it's free. We're not selling anything. So there's that. So, so I guess now we can talk a little bit about how to find your Dharma. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to share my screen here because I think it's wise to begin with a basic outline of what Dharma is. And I think most people watching this are familiar with the term, but let me just create a table here and we'll get started. So this idea of Dharma is understanding your purpose, your design in the world. And it's kind of like waking up one morning and not knowing whether you're a man or a woman. And think about, all the decisions that you have to make that are based on your gender, like what toilet to use, what clothes you can wear and what you can't wear, how you behave and so on. And so, not knowing your Dharma type is, to me, in my opinion, very similar to that. You're missing out on a whole bunch of stuff, a lot of decisions become very difficult for you that shouldn't be difficult. And today, I'm going to coin how to find your Dharma in the context of what I call the 5 Dharma types. So these are these 5 core archetypes that I found exist everywhere, regardless of whether you live in India or Indiana, regardless of the culture, regardless of the time, whether it was 5,000 BC or 5,000 years in the future. These archetypes are in us. And in India, they cognize them in a very efficient way, but I want to put it to you that any traditional culture you go to has these archetypes. So if you ever go to Hawaii, you're going to visit, you've heard of the phrase, the big kahuna. Yeah. Right? Yeah. The kahuna is the educator, the teacher, right? The wise man or woman of the tribe. Mm-hmm. Ali'i Boulevard is the main boulevard in Honolulu that goes by the beach there. And Ali'i means the chief, the warrior. And they had their own system. Now, of course, all of these systems ultimately fail because they become politicized and whatnot. But as I think, in my opinion, they failed in Indian society as well, because they can be used to oppress people. So our goal is not to oppress people, but to help us understand our purpose in life. And to begin, we have to begin first with these 2 very core basic archetypes, which are the warrior and the laborer. Mm-hmm. And in my book, Sex, Love, and Dharma, I talk about this in detail. And there's a whole chapter called All Men Are Warriors, All Women Are Laborers. Now, before you write me some hate mail and talking about...
Yeah, I was like, okay, get ready.
Oh, that's not true. Let me explain what I mean by that. At his heart, at his core, every man fundamentally, in times of emergency, in times of stress, has to take on the warrior role. Like, he's the one who's going to step forward and step on that cockroach, mm-hmm. or argue, haggle with the taxi driver to get the price down, or, protect his family, protect his property. So every man, no matter how humble, how meek, how sensitive, at a fundamental level, is a warrior. And what that means is that if you're a young guy, let's say, and you want to really mature into being a man, you have to understand the warrior, what it means to be a warrior. And this has to do with how you behave around women, how you behave around other men, because we've seen, especially in the West, men who are successful, make money, but they're still little boys in men's bodies. They haven't matured. And in traditional cultures, there are rituals that take you from being a boy to being a man. They're all warrior rituals. So what does it mean to be a warrior? It means to be essentially Purusha. This is the same thing as Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha stands firm, tall, and strong despite all the craziness going on around him. Prakriti is creative. It's the ability to create and move and have change. So there's this archetype of the sun and the moon, right? The sun is fixed, still, it rises, it predictably every day. The moon changes her garb and her shape. Mm-hmm. So what does this mean for us on a very personal level? Well, remember this: all men want to be respected and admired. Women want to be cherished and loved. So this is, if you just understand this, you will go a long way towards understanding life in society. What do I mean by this? So a man and a woman will get married. After sort of the honeymoon wears off, 5 years into the marriage, 10 years, problems start happening. Why? Because the wife sees the man in his underwear every day. You know, she sees him, you know, even on the toilet. She sees him at his most basic, right?
Why are you describing my marriage to the T?
I'm describing every marriage. This is how it is. And so it's very easy for the woman to lose respect for that man because she knows him. Look, yeah. Bill Gates, when he goes into Microsoft, oh, Mr. Gates, the president called. Should I put him on the line too? Oh, Mr. Gates, right? You are respected, you are admired. But at home, Bill, did you take out the trash? Hey, and put the dirty underwear in the hamper, okay? You know, you're just Bill. And so within the context of a marriage, this is why sometimes marriages go astray, especially in the West, because the man begins to feel like he's losing that respect and admiration. But when he goes in the office and there's the young secretary and she looks at you and says, oh, Mr. Kapiel, wow, you're so talented. And it's a genuine respect. And we get an attraction happens, and an attraction you become attracted to that other woman, not because she's beautiful. There's tons of beautiful women all around, but because she looked at you with respect in her eyes, with admiration. Oh, and she gives you that Shakti that every warrior wants. Because why does a warrior compete? He competes to complete a goal. And all he wants, he doesn't care about money, but he cares about that you look at him and you go, wow, you're amazing. You're really incredible. You won that gold medal. You get that he wants the respect and he wants admiration. He may not want it consciously, but it's a subconscious thing. And if a man feels like he's losing that respect and admiration in his relationship, he's going to look for it elsewhere on a subconscious level. And when someone gives it to him, he'll be drawn to them. And this is why so many marriages, so many relationships begin to stray. Now, on the other hand, a woman wants to be cherished because the laborer represents, and Prakriti represents value, represents what's inherently the most valuable thing in the world. Think about it, all you single guys, when you were single, all the things you did to win the respect and the love of your partner. You buy flowers, you buy perfume, you clean your house, You do all these things to show that you have high value to match the value of your honey.
Yeah.
And so you, in the beginning, you cherish that honey of yours because you see how valuable and beautiful she is. But over time, men stop cherishing. They start cherishing, you know, the couch and the sports team. They like their sports team more than the wife. And so when the woman starts feeling that, she will start to withdraw as well. And often these things happen simultaneously. And so understanding Dharma means first, and at the most basic level, understanding what it is to be a man and what it is to be a woman. Because if you can't handle this, there's no point in moving on to the Dharma types. This is the most basic. It's like in Ayurveda, if you don't know how to eat a healthy diet, what's the point of taking herbs and medicines?
Yeah.
They're not going to work. You need the very basics of, you got to eat this and don't eat this. So when it comes to Dharma, if you don't understand the laborer's path and the warrior's path, you're essentially doomed before you start. So anything that a man can do to show that he loves his honey unconditionally, no matter what happens, I've got your back. No matter if I go to the ends of the earth, and even if I, fall on my face and I make mistakes, I love you more than anyone else on this planet, more than my secretary, more than, and you are first. And it doesn't matter. None of it matters. So when a woman really feels that, it begins the coming together again. And cherish. Cherish means to appreciate the value. So to love someone, you can love them without cherishing them necessarily. Like I love maybe, I don't know, my dog or some family members, but I may not cherish them in the sense that thinking they are the most precious thing in my life. Okay? So anyway, so these are the first two steps of understanding Dharma. The final thing I'll say is that no matter how sensitive and meek the man is, from a sexual standpoint, he is the penetrator, right? He is the warrior. And no matter how strong and independent the woman is, she is the penetrated. So in sex and relationships, you have to understand this dynamic, that for there to be a charge, a magnetism between you two, even 20 years into your marriage, the man has to understand that he is the warrior. And that doesn't mean domination, it means strength. And he knows he's the penetrator. And she is the value, the Shakti, and it begins this dance. In everything else, he can be very meek and very soft and gentle and loving, but in his relationship, he's the man. And this is very important if we're talking Dharma. And again, in my book, Sex, Love, and Dharma, this topic is handled at length. All right. So any questions so far? Does this make sense?
No, absolutely. This definitely makes sense. Yeah.
It's not what you expect. Okay, we're going to get into now the specifics of the other types as well. So merchant, educator, and outsider. Now, typically in the Indian system, the Varna system, there are 4 types, and these are the 4 types. I've added the 5th, outsider, because even with the 4 types, they talk about the mlecha, right? The outsider, or however you want to term it. And
I guess they also call it, in a way, in a derogatory way, they'll call it like untouchables. Is that
right? Untouchables,
yeah.
Right? Well, that has a lot to do with culture, and that has a lot to do with a whole nother topic, which is racism. And racism is a fundamental quality of every human being because it's security. It's first chakra stuff, meaning that we as humans don't want to be attacked by bears. So the bears or the animals are the outsiders.
Yeah.
Well, once we're safe from animals, now there's another tribe. well, they're the outsiders, so we want to protect ourselves against them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if now we live in a civilized city, well, now these people are coming to take my jobs, so they're the outsiders. So this
Illegal
idea,
immigrants, that becomes outside.
right, this idea of security is actually all human beings are racist, because we're all set up biologically to fight against that which wants to encroach on our stuff, on our territory. This is why alien movies are so popular. Think about it. As soon as the aliens attack us, all humans unite.
Yeah.
I love you, Republican. I love you, Democrat.
Yeah.
Kill those aliens, right? All of a sudden, all the stuff is gone, and now we hate aliens. So we as humans have this instinct. We want to have an us and a them, and it's just basic security. So this idea of the outsider is, the term mlecha actually comes from the Sanskrit root mlich, which means to speak indistinctly. And it referred in the old days to someone who doesn't speak Sanskrit. So by that definition, that's kind of all of us, isn't it? We're all outsiders.
Yeah.
We're all mlechas. But anyway, to get back to the topic, in the modern age, in Kali Yuga, these 5 types describe our software in a very precise way. So I've been in trains in India, in subways in New York, in Toronto, and in classes in Ohio and in Australia, and these types work the same way wherever you go. You see merchants behaving like merchants, predictable and predictable to a T. You see an outsider and you can predict what they're going to do. I wrote an article about Donald Trump coming into the White House, I think last November or October, and November, and how he would be different from Obama. Obama is an educator. So there were some very predictable things he would do. He was going to try to get along with everybody, because that's what educators do. Compromise, delegation, trying to meet in the middle. What outsiders do is they blame, especially when they're disintegrated. So they're going to blame everyone but themselves. So they can see what's happening, what's wrong with the world. And it's ironic because they can see what's wrong with everyone else except themselves. And so they'll say, it's your fault, this is bad, no, this is bad, you're gone, you're this, but they never turn that lens to themselves when they're disintegrated.
Wouldn't he be also more of a merchant as a business?
He's an outsider playing a merchant, correct. And I'll talk about that in a minute, but fundamentally he's an outsider.
Mm-hmm.
And he really represents this, the United States moving into a Rahu Mahadasha. If you know the chart of the United States, we have Rahu, the US, has Rahu in the 8th house, and we just started Rahu Dasha. So a couple years ago. So 5 years ago, there was no way he could get elected because we were not in that period. But now we're in an outsider Dasha, so it's calling for an outsider to come. And anyway, we'll get to this in a second. So these are the 5 Dharma types, and they each have some basic strong points and basic weak points. In a minute, I'll show you how to find them in the chart.
Okay.
Horoscope. But before we find them in a chart, you have to know what it means to be a warrior and what it means to be a merchant. So let's just talk about that a little bit. The warrior's dharma is to protect that which cannot protect itself. Warriors are also natural leaders. So leadership comes easily. And they look for emergencies. So if a bomb went off next to us, next door, everyone will be, oh my God, what happened? The warrior would be the first one to put their head up and go, hey, what happened and how can I fix this? Hey, you, go check this to see if that's still working. I'm gonna go find out, right? Whether you're a man or a woman, whether you're 4 foot tall or 6 foot tall, doesn't matter. If you're a warrior dharma type, you naturally thrive in an emergency. And sometimes when clients don't know if they're this or that, I'll ask them this question. So if a bomb went off right now, you know, would you be the one with your head down or the one immediately looking for solutions? And that sense of leadership immediately comes out in them, whether they're a mother of 5 and, you know, a stay-at-home mom. It doesn't matter. If you're a warrior type, that part of you is going to come out. So, and their weakness, so their strength is leadership, the ability to protect and thrive in an emergency. Their weakness is they can have a little pride, arrogance. They can also be cynical because they know people are inherently bad, that people are going to try to take advantage of you, and warriors become cynical. All right, next is the laborer. The laborer, their natural impulse is to serve. Their question is, how can I be of use? They are very practical. And we can think about this also in the relationship between men and women. You know, if it's in India, if you're a guy, you hang out with your guy friends at the chai wala stand, and talk about all the projects that you're thinking about. Yeah, we're going to do this, and man, yeah, you know, we're going to take this on, and hey, why don't we get together, and all the big dreams, right? Is your drinking time. While when you get home, your honey is, did you pay the electric bill? Did you do this? Right? Very practical, down to earth, because she knows that you can't have and you can't achieve that dream unless your foundation is solid. And so the laborer, whether they're a man or a woman, is the most practical person. Oprah is a famous laborer type. Harrison Ford, famous laborer type. He was a carpenter before he became an actor. He built things with his hands. So laborers also love community, family. They're the community and family builders. So they're like the sun in the middle of the solar system, or the black hole in the middle of the galaxy. Everything spins around them. So they love creating community get-togethers, barbecues, dinners, town hall meetings, going to baseball games, where people gather and meet. There's a very communal quality. Their negative trait is stubborn, and they think that their way is the only way. So they're limited thinking. My way is the only way, right? They don't understand sometimes that other people have different realities. And so they think if Christian, if I'm Christian, my Christian God is the best God. So I'm going to go tell everybody they need to convert to my God, or whatever, you fill in the blank. My diet is the best diet because it works for them. So limited thinking. Then the merchant, their dharma is to create happiness. They're the happiness brokers of the Dharma type family. How do they do that? By sharing Shakti, sharing good times. And one of the best ways to share Shakti is through commerce. Oh, you want the latest CD? Here, I've got it. I'll sell it to you. You want, the nicest car? Here, I'll sell it to you. So they do well in commerce, but they also do well in entertainment because they give people the feelings they want to have. The negative quality is that they can be shallow, and they feel empty inside. Every merchant feels empty inside, and that's what drives them to expand their business. That's what drives them to, America is a merchant country, and they're constantly trying to invent new ways to have fun, to distract themselves, new clothes, new music, new this, so that we don't feel that emptiness inside. The antidote for the merchant is charity. Give what you most want to have. Doesn't mean just money, but give your smile, give your time, so when people think of America, we're going to use the merchant as America. The best quality of America is when we go out and we do good things, when we build wells, in Africa, or when we export our fun culture, blue jeans and rock and roll and Elvis. Mm-hmm. That's why people love America. What they don't love is when the merchant becomes militaristic. So when the merchant disintegrates, they become aggressive. So aggression is their downfall, lying, cheating, that kind of thing. And so if we as a country, or if you are a merchant Dharma type, if you always remember, come back to this, because charity leads to gratitude. And gratitude fills that empty hole inside. So when you give somebody a tip, hey, I know this broker who can help you sell your house, or who can help you buy a house. And if that person has been trying for a year to buy a house, but they haven't been able to, and you give them that tip, what you get back in return is that gratitude that's going to fill you better than all the drugs, all the food.
Absolutely. I mean, I at least do this once a month where I go purposely out to a restaurant and I give the waiter 80% to 100% tip.
Wow.
If my bill was 50, I would just leave 100.
Isn't it amazing?
I love it, and I like to see I kind of go leave, but then I like to see them open that wow. I would like to see that how happy they are.
And here's the thing, like I said, it can certainly be money, but it doesn't have to be. It can even be a genuine compliment. Yeah. When you look at someone and you go, man, you look good in that shirt today. And as a merchant, you have such Shakti that your words have power. Mm-hmm. And that person the whole day is walking around hey, I do look good in this shirt today. Hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you. You've changed their whole bhava, their whole sense of who they are. So even a compliment or a smile, if it's genuine, is charity. So merchants do this better than anyone else, and that's their spiritual path. It's very simple. So instead of going here, aggression, no, I'm the greatest. No, look at me, I'm the best. Hey, you pay attention to me. No, that's disintegration. Integration is giving. Give. Mm-hmm. Okay. Then the educator, they are the
leadership and emergency ones. What do we say there?
So the merchant, so the warrior has essentially leadership. Their laborers are fundamentally practical. Merchants grease the gears of society. So they are
entertainers.
They're basically when a laborer, a warrior will defeat. Let's take a very primal example. A warrior will go out and kill the animals that are, messing in a certain area. Then a laborer will come in and build a home. Then the merchant will come in and make that home fabulous, comfortable, not just sticks, not just sticks in stone, but nice, comfortable place to lie down with a good view. So merchants understand luxury. They understand and how to convey it to the world. And their fundamental drive is networking, connecting, like in the example I gave you. Oh, you want to buy a house? I know this guy. Here, let me give you his card. You didn't have to do that, and you may not even get anything from it, but that's your gift. Mm-hmm. Who would be perfect for you? I know one of my girlfriends, she's actually single. You guys should go out. A year later, they're married. There's this ability to put people together. with the objects of their desire. And that makes you a great salesperson, but it also makes you a great entertainer. It makes you good at banking, business, because a person comes to you at the bank, you put them together with the exact perfect annuity program or the exact perfect loan that fits them. There's this ability to put people together with the objects of their desire. Okay? All right, educators' role is they're the wisdom givers of the Dharma type family. So their job is to convey wisdom. So if you're an educator type, I say this to a lot of my clients, you could be at a bus stop at 2 in the morning and people will come up to you and start telling you their problems because there is a non-judgmental quality about educators that people feel they can open up to them. Educators are like the scientists. They can see both sides of a story. They like to observe and see what the truth is. So their gift is spreading wisdom. So even if you're at the counter of the clothing store and all you're going to do is buy shoes, you can't help it as an educator. You're going to say something to that clerk that's going to teach her something. And sometimes that can be an annoying trait. For example, if you're a cab driver as an educator and you're driving your clients around, you're going to point out, hey, this is the Brooklyn Bridge. Did you know that at the time it was the greatest project in the, the architect, funny story, was this and that. And people are looking at themselves like, why is he telling us this? Well, you can't help it. You're an educator. So these Dharma types are not so much about what profession you do, they're about how you do it. So in my book, The 5 Dharma Types, I give this example of 5 cab drivers, a warrior, a laborer, a merchant, and an educator outsider, and how each of them will drive that cab. The warrior, what's the address? 59 Street in Oak. They're going to get there as fast as they can because they want to get to the goal.
Yeah.
They want to complete the task. They're in the leadership position. They're going to penetrate into the area and go. The laborer, first of all, they've been there for 20 hours in the cab, so the cab smells a little bit. Because they're, laborers are very sturdy, practical, and they have tremendous endurance. They can work longer and harder than anyone else. So they're going to be on the phone with their kids or their wife. Where are you going? 59 Oak Street. Okay. So anyways, I was telling the guy that this and labor.
Oh my God, that's all my cab drivers.
That actually tends to be a very good profession for laborers because it values endurance. Like if you can be in that cab for 12 hours, you're going to make more money than if you're in there for 8 hours.
Yeah.
A lot more money. The merchant cab driver, where are you going? 59th and Oak Street. Oh yeah, there's this really cool club near there. I should show you guys. I'll take you. And the merchant now starts taking them a long way, right? Hey, by the way, are you from here? Because you look kind of familiar, Merchants, chatty, make you feel good. But by the end of that ride, you've paid double what you would have paid these guys.
Yeah.
Because the ride's a little slower. The cab, it's got nice stuff, nice stereo system. It's a little more luxurious, but you're going to pay for it. And that's because the merchant attracts money. Mm-hmm. The educator, I already mentioned, they're the ones who are going to try to teach you stuff.
Yeah.
And the outsider is just going to be a totally different experience. It's going to be, Rasta reggae going on inside. It's going to smell, again, a little funky. It's going to be weird crystals. You're going to feel like you're in another planet when you get into that cab.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, man, where you going to go? 59th and Oak. I don't know where that is, but I'm going to drive. We find it. Don't worry, man. We get there. Right?
Yeah. I've been through all 5 of these tech cab rides, and I'm telling you, I have.
Yeah.
Seen all of these 5 cab drivers, especially the one who's the laborer. Oh my God.
Yeah.
New York, they're talking to like 5 different family members when driving.
And it always smells like some kind of food.
Yeah.
Because laborers' food are very close. So yeah, so this is how you observe also. Now the educator, their weakness, I'm going to go to their weakness, is passion, lust, and primal emotion. Because educators like to portray themselves as pure, and they are. They're pure, they represent truth, the truth of society, they're the role models. But inside, they also have tremendous passions that they sometimes repress because it doesn't seem right to express them in the world because people think so highly of them.
Mm-hmm.
So their job is they have to, and every educator knows this, by the way. They won't say it in public, but when I see them privately and we start to get into this, they're like, yeah. That's me. So, and so one of the ways to handle it is to find a physical expression for all of this lust and primal emotion. And there's plenty of educators, famous educators out there who have succumbed to this. Even in my book, I give the example of a few. They're men, but certainly this applies to women as well, like Benjamin Franklin, who had many mistresses, and yet he still did great work, but he abandoned his family. Tiger Woods was an educator, the poster boy for the pure, perfect athlete, and yet he had 40 mistresses on the side. Even Gandhiji, and Gandhi writes about this in his biography, how his passion pulled him to stray from his family. But it didn't stop him from his mission, but it became an issue for all his life, self-control, brahmacharya. So educators always struggle with this and understand that it's not you, it's your Dharma type, it's who you are, it's your programming. And there are ways to deal with it. So educators value truth and wisdom, and their job is again to share knowledge. So however they do that, and again, it could be even as cab drivers. Their core value is surrender to the universe. And I can't get into deep thought about all of these because I also want to show you how to find them in the chart. But if you want more info, my book, The 5 Dharma Types, is sort of an encyclopedia on this stuff. So let's get to the outsider then.
So what would you say there next to networking for them?
So the educator's essential gift is diplomacy. I mean, there are a lot of words we could put in here. Diplomacy means being able to see multiple sides of a coin. That's why, like, John Kerry was the diplomat during the Obama time, because he's an educator type. Educators, again, are non-judgmental, right? So even though they may have an agenda, they're going to listen to your grievances fully before they present the other side's point of view as well. So diplomacy is very strong in educators. It just comes naturally to you. Finally, the outsider. The outsider is the troubleshooter, the whistleblower, meaning they can see what's wrong with the world, as I was mentioning earlier, and their job is to innovation, to bring something new and fresh, out of the box, even revolution. Now, the best outsiders, like the Buddha, like Jesus, they were both outsiders. They come in and they take the tradition that exists, like Jesus with the Judaic tradition. He says, wow, this is a beautiful tradition we have. Let's share it with the Romans, with the Gentiles. Why can't everyone have access to it? Of course, that's why he was killed, because he took something that belonged to someone else and he shared it. But this is what outsiders do. Their job is to meld, to blend different traditions to create something new. East-West cuisine. Someone said, I love, Western food, but I also love sushi. Why can't we eat them on the same plate? That's the outsider's dharma, is to create something new by blending what already exists.
Like fusion food.
Fusion, exactly.
Yeah.
The Buddha said, the Buddha had many revolutionary ideas. Among them, there is no soul, there is no God. To sit and meditate and realize that. Oh, and by the way, women can become monks too. Oh, and by the way, Brahmin priest, you're not that important. Same thing that Jesus did. He walked up to the priest and he said, verily I say to you, whores and tax collectors are entering heaven before you. And at the time, to be a prostitute and a tax collector was like the worst thing you could be in that society. Like you were the lowest of the low. And he said, these people are going to go to heaven before you. And he was saying this to the high priest, the guy who was supposed to know more, with the longest beard, right? Who had done nothing but study the sacred text all his life. He walked up to him and he said, whores and tax collectors are going to heaven before you.
Why did he say that?
Because they were hypocrites. They would speak truth. They would speak. It was the same thing that happened in Buddha's time, where the Brahmanic priests were taking money, doing rituals, and telling people, oh yes, definitely, you're getting to heaven. All your problems, God told me you're going to be okay, right?
Yeah.
Bullshit. Buddha walked up and said, bullshit. You don't have any more access to God than the normal person. You're just using that as an excuse to make money. And same thing with the priests in Jesus. And he threw out the money exchangers tables and said, this is the house of, this is my house. And he called them serpents. These guys were radical. They were outsiders. They came in and they tabula rasa. They starting from scratch. So that's the outsider's dharma, is to bring a revolution. Now, does that mean all of us have to do that if we're outsiders? No. We could simply be the agent for bringing Jyotish to a new community. Outsider.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like an outsider.
Yeah, and we'll soon see in your chart. You'll know, in the next 15 minutes how to see that in your horoscope. Okay, so their weakness is that they don't see their own, pardon my French, their own shit. They don't see their own deceit, so they lie to themselves. I was driving with a friend of mine, an outsider, and we were having this beautiful conversation about something like this. And she was driving, and she cuts somebody off. That person honks, and all of a sudden, she looks at me, and I'm not going to repeat what she said, but you.
Yeah.
And she looks at me like, oh, some people. And I'm looking at her like, you cut him off. It's your fault. And like that didn't connect with her. Like she saw that guy was the problem, not me. So the hardest thing for outsiders is to see their own crap. They lie to themselves, and they will create a structure around them that reinforces that lie, unfortunately. So in the story of Jesus, he goes into the desert and fasts and purifies himself for 40 days, or that was just a way of saying for a long time. And he has the trials by the devil. The devil is his own ego. The devil is that part of him that goes, hey man, you got such shakti, such power, such knowledge. You could rule these tribes. So easy you can rule them. And he says, do not tempt. Really? You've got such shakti that if you jump off this cliff, God loves you so much, you're not going to die. You'll be taken care of. And he doesn't succumb to that temptation of feeling himself to make himself great, puff himself up. He rejects that, and he passes the test. But for so many outsiders, including our own president, Mr. Trump, they don't pass that test. They lie to themselves and tell themselves, I am the greatest. I'm the best thing since sliced bread. Everyone else is messed up. Now, by the way, this is not a character judgment. It's what outsiders do. It's part of your programming. And the way to get out of it is to, first of all, take responsibility for everything in your life. Even the bad stuff, especially the bad stuff. Oh, you were abused when you were 5? That's tragic. That's horrible. But that's not an excuse now for you to abuse others or, to not lead a full life. You have to take responsibility for your own life. Then ultimately, their Dharma is to give their unique expression to the world. The unique expression is usually a blend of East and West, of this and that. Their negative quality is they're not fond of rules, so they're rule breakers. Laws are just a suggestion. Speed limits are just a suggestion. And they're, as I mentioned earlier, deceitful. But their good quality is the ability to basically renew society, to innovate. All right. So I know I've kind of been really going, I'm an educator type, so I can't help but just talk. So I apologize if I've been too beating you over the head with this. So let's go into how to find these types in the horoscope. Shall we?
Yeah.
All right. So it's very simple. The rule for finding the Dharma type, at least this works maybe 80% of the time, and it's a very simple rule, is to take the Lord of the Lagna. See which house it goes to. So if it's the first house, it gives us either a warrior or educator. So for now, just write this down and and just let it soak in, and then we'll talk about how it works. The second house is complex. It's primarily a laborer house, but it also has educator and even merchant. So the second house has 3 possible types. The third house is outsider, often emulating a merchant, but not always. So third house is just outsider. Fourth is also outsider, often emulating an educator. Let me move this thing here. So if the Lagna Lord goes to the 4th, you're an outsider playing an educator. I'll talk about what that means in a little bit. 5th house is educator or laborer. 6th is laborer or warrior. 7th is merchant or educator. 8th is outsider. 9th is, this is also one that has 3 possibilities: warrior, laborer, or educator. The 10th is warrior or laborer. 11th is merchant primarily, but also educator. And the 12th is outsider. Okay? So that's it. It's very simple. Now, this is the first. The second rule says that when Rahu or Ketu are in the Lagna, immediately default to outsider. Doesn't matter where the Lord of the Lagna is. If Rahu Ketu are in the Lagna, outsider type. Finished. Done.
Okay.
And then when Rahu Ketu are with Lagna Lord, same thing. Default to outsider. So by this method, there will be more outsiders than any other Dharma type.
Okay.
And that is in fact my experience, that there are more outsiders in the world at the moment because we live in Kali Yuga, because we live in an age where cultures have mixed, where you can get on an airplane and be in India in less than a day, or in Antarctica, or in Australia.
Yeah.
There's such an ease of cultural intermixture that many of us are outsiders. Because think about this, 5000 BC, to go 50 miles was to go very, very far. Because you had to either walk or, ride a cart. And it took several days. Well, in several days on an airplane, you can go around the world a couple times.
Yeah.
Today. So we live in a different society. In Kali Yuga, the rules have shifted. And one of those rules also says that these 5 Dharma types, none of them is better than any other. They're like the fingers in your hand. Which one are you going to cut off? So they're all equal, but they just have different paths to enlightenment. The other thing, the other truth that I found that applies to Kali Yuga is that in this age, these are not hereditary. So regardless of what your parents were, the Dharma type that your parents are, it doesn't mean you're going to be that type. So sometimes merchants are born in a Brahmin family and they just naturally want to network and make money. Whereas the father and the mother are saying, no, you should study, you should do ritual, you should. And he's like, no, I want to start my business. So it doesn't matter what family you're born into. I know this is going to ruffle some feathers, but really your core dharma doesn't depend on mom and dad, because bloodlines have mixed so much. You don't know what 7 generations up where mixed, and you've inherited that DNA of some outsider or some educator, even though your parents insisted they are warriors or whatever. So non-hereditary. And non-hierarchical as well. So this is it. This is the basic formula for finding the type. Now, if you're unsure, we can also include nakshatras a little bit, but I think at this point, let's just stick to this. So let's take an example. Let me pull up a chart here. Or do you have a chart in mind that you'd like to look at of someone?
Let's see if I...
That shows you how prepared I am.
I have, let me see your chart. Okay, so this, I'm not sure if this time of birth is correct, but I've chart of the mathematician Ramanujan.
Okay.
I don't know if you want me to pull that up.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, let's look at it.
So let me share the screen. Okay. So this is his chart, Srivanas Ramanujan.
Okay. So by this, so if this is indeed the correct horoscope, then this. So let's just we'll walk through this. So the Lagna Lord is Mercury, right? Because this is a Gemini Lagna.
Yeah.
Mercury goes to the 6th house. So as per what I just wrote down, when the Lagna Lord goes to the 6th, it gives us either a laborer or a warrior Dharma type.
Okay.
Now, I don't know anything, in fact, about this person. However, laborers do particularly well in with facts and figures. They're very, as I mentioned, very practical. And they become excellent. I mean, he has a beautiful mind as well. He's got this beautiful Malavya Yoga in the 5th. But let's not. I don't want to go on a tangent here. So it makes sense that mathematics, practical sort of understanding of how things work in a practical way is one of the qualities of the laborer Dharma type. Now, what was he famous for?
His work on mathematics, calculus, infinity, mathematics.
Mathematics. Okay. Now, here's one thing to understand about laborer. People think, oh, laborer, that means Shudra, that means low class. No. Let's just break that right now. Laborer is one of the best types for specialization because they're able to focus on one thing and one thing only. And laborers have a tremendous ability to specialize. So they can be brain surgeons, astronauts, electrician or engineers, professions that require very narrow focus and the ability to go deep.
Like he was all about wanting to know about infinity, the symbol of infinity in mathematics.
So he was focused, ironically, on something that's ultimately broad, but there was a narrow focus on it. Whereas laborers don't do well in professions that require you to not focus, meaning to be a diplomat, to share multiple points of view, to be a Renaissance person who knows a little bit about everything. That's not the laborer. Laborers like to focus in on one area, typically.
Okay.
Now, that's assuming if he was a labor type, maybe he was a warrior type. We don't know because we don't know. See, when confronted with a choice like this, the next step is to see, all right, well, the next step is to talk to the person and, get a sense of who they are. And after talking with someone for about 10 minutes, I can pretty much figure it out.
I want to show you this one other chart. I think this would be a very, very interesting chart. Okay, let me see here. Okay.
I'm digging the new haircut, though.
Oh, man. Yeah, it took like 45 minutes for this guy to get it for me. So this is a chart. This is actually a very accurate time of birth. So here the ascendant lord is in the ascendant with Venus and Moon.
Yeah, well, so this is most likely an educator Dharma type, someone who is a teacher, a guru to others.
This is one of the biggest Indian astrologers, Kapiel Raaj.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, right, and I've actually had the privilege of meeting him, and he's definitely an educator because educators have this sort of non-defense, they're soft. And even if we act hard, there's people go, you're not really that tough. There's a sense of, I don't know. Neil deGrasse Tyson is an astrophysicist. He's also a typical educator type, like big guy, talks very strongly, but essentially, fudge, like soft. I'm an educator type as well, so we're kind of. Anyway, so Mr. Kapiel Raaj, right? So this is the chart. Now I could have said warrior as well because the Lord of the First in the First gives us either option. But in speaking with him a little bit, you would very quickly realize that he's most likely his dharma is to teach and to transfer wisdom into the world.
Okay. One thing I wanted to ask you, will conjunction with other planets change the Dharma type or no?
It can. So if a planet is exalted, like in Einstein's chart, let me share my screen. I'll show you. I'll share you Einstein's chart.
Okay.
So here's Mr. Einstein's chart. So the Lord of his Lagna, and apologies to those of you who are South Indian chart readers, but there you go. In fact, can I make this both? There we go. So when the Lord of the Lagna here is in the 10th house, it gives us either a laborer or warrior. But in this case, the Lord of the Lagna is conjunct an exalted Venus. and this is an exception, when a planet is exalted, either in the Lagna or with the Lagna Lord, it will give its Dharma type, just like Rahu does when it conjoins.
Okay.
It makes a person an outsider. So Venus and Jupiter are the Brahmin planets. They're the educators. Mars and Sun are the Kshatriya, the warrior planets. Moon and Mercury are the merchant planets.
Okay.
And Saturn is the laborer planet. And then, of course, Rahu, Ketu are outsiders.
Okay.
So when one of these is exalted, so if Saturn had been exalted with the Lagna Lord, the person would be a laborer. If the Sun had been exalted with the Lagna Lord, the person would be a warrior. If Jupiter had been exalted with the Lagna Lord, the person would be a educator.
Okay.
So yes, that is an exception. When a planet is exalted, it will overwhelm the meanings of the bhava of the house.
So will there anything you would say about his royer type or his labor type, or you'll just be like, nope, you're the educator?
Nope, educator. It overwhelms, overrides, just the same way that Rahu does. So when Rahu sits in the Lagna, you don't care where the Lagna Lord goes. You default to outside.
Okay. All right. So in a way, you can actually kind of correlate with the next class that you were talking about, business or job, where a merchant planet associated with Lagna can actually give that inclination as well.
Yeah, so in the next class, there's a very specific performer that's not mine. So everything that I've talked about here today, this is my stuff, things that I've observed and system I've developed.
Yeah.
Next time, it's a system that my teacher passed down to us that works very reliably, and you can
hard
use
to
it.
fold, right?
Hard to fold, correct. And you can use it to see whether a person is fundamentally independent or dependent or somewhere in between. And just remember that even the President of the United States is a dependent. He gets a salary, you know, he has an office where he works. He's not an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So dependent doesn't mean, you know, not quality, not, you know, lack of status.
So it's like you need people in your office, like you need a secretary, you need the administrator. So you have
you need a structure. Right? And so for what it's worth, let's see, Einstein was what we would term a high-class dependent. He needed structure. He needed people to sort of take care of, because I'm looking at his chart through this lens now, and you guys will see this next time. He needed people to provide the structure for him so that all he could do was just physics. He wasn't an entrepreneur in the classic sense.
Okay.
So, yeah, and so we can talk about that next time. But that's my basic method for finding the Dharma. And, you know, honestly, Dharma is everything. When am I going to get married? You know, when am I going to get a job? Those things come and go. But if you don't know your Dharma, so what if you get married and get a job? If you don't know who you are, that marriage is not going to work as well as it could. That job is not going to be as successful as it could, as if you knew, oh, my Dharma is to spread truth and wisdom. My weakness is lust. Okay, I'm going to work on those things. So just knowing a little bit about your Dharma type can help you. Even knowing as a man that I have to really understand the warrior's Dharma, what that means, that I have to hold space.
But can a man also have a laborer Dharma?
Yeah. So outside of emergency situations, we all revert to our normal Dharma type. So again, if something happens right now, I'm not a warrior Dharma type, but if something happens like an emergency or a famine, or I will revert to my basic programming as a male and become a warrior.
Okay. Yeah.
That's just, you know, basic biology.
Perfect.
So I hope this was useful.
Yes, absolutely useful. Yes.
If you guys want more information, you can visit my site, spirittype.com. There's actually a Dharma test. So having said all of this with the Jyotish, there's an easy 10-question test you can take that will also narrow down your Dharma type. It's very effective in most people. It works. It's a free test on the site, and it will also show you which famous celebrities are that type, and it'll kind of summarize the good and the bad qualities.
And your book, the Dharma type, it's available on Amazon?
5 Dharma types, barnesandnoble.com, amazon.com.
Okay.
It's published by Inner Traditions. It's available in India,
Okay.
in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa. I get emails from people all over the world who have read it, and so I know it's there. Look for it at your local bookstore.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming today. And definitely, I'm looking forward to the next class for sure.
Yeah, this class was horrible. Let's just look forward to
No, no, the next one for sure. I mean, this was like something that I think everybody needs to know, whether you follow astrology or not. It's like whether you like astrology or not. I think it is like a moral education. You got to know. Because
yeah, and it's not fun.
Okay, who am I relating to? My wife is a royal type. I really got to be able to let her be in charge or something, you know?
Just remember this. Cherish and love her if you're a man. And do everything you can to show that you do. If you're a woman listening to this, give your man a little bit of admiration, a twinkle in your eye, and that respect. And all of a sudden, you'll see him go from this to feeling good about himself. So if all you take
to ask you though, so let's say if let's say I am a for example, let's say if I'm a Libra type and my wife is a royal type according to the birth chart, how should that relationship then go?
Yeah, so different types relate differently. So laborers and warriors are neutral to each other. Not bad, not great. It's like the planets Mars and Venus. And when you think about it, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. And so relationships, see, the ancients knew this, and they made those planets, they're not enemies, but they're also not friends.
Yeah.
It means relationships take work.
Yeah.
Make them friendly. So laborers and warriors are neutral to each other.
Okay.
Good pairings are between educator and educator. Excellent pairings are between types that integrate into each other. And those are in my book. They're educator, warrior, merchant, laborer.
Okay.
But there's more detail on how you fit for relationships.
Okay.
And so, for example, my wife is a warrior type, and so she challenges me to be better, because educators tend to be too much in our head, fantasize, but never do anything. The warrior challenges me to get up, actually move around, exercise, and put my ideas into practice. I challenge her to walk with wisdom, because warriors want to just go out and I'm going to do this, and I know what I'm doing. No, honey, you don't know what you're doing. Listen, learn a little bit, get some wisdom, and then do it.
So like two outsiders coming together, they'll be like just creating chaos.
It can be, but they also get each other on a fundamental level. So outsiders understand what it means to be an outsider. And so
that's true. Yes.
If you're two French people in the middle of China, and eat, you're gonna go, oh, we have a shared understanding, right? Because we're both outsiders in this country.
Okay. Wow. Amazing. Yeah, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense now. Amazing.
So now I am sure, and your chart, so know your Dharma type.
Yeah.
And the next phase, which we're not going to cover now, is what cycle are you in? So we've talked about your core DNA Dharma type.
Yeah.
That never changes. It's who you are.
Yeah.
But hold on, let me turn this off.
Oh, that's the laborer.
That's a phone. So the next phase is, what period am I in? So I may be an educator, but if I'm in a merchant period, that means now it's time for me to sell my knowledge. But if I'm in an outsider period, it's time for me to go do research in another country or find out new ideas. So the period you're in also has a lot to say about how your life expresses. And that's why, even though there's only 5 types, everyone has a unique place in their life. you might be an outsider in a merchant period. So you're going to bring a different culture and sell it.
Sell it, make money. Okay.
Sell it to the masses. Anyone in a merchant period is going to be doing business.
And you're talking about there's some sense of Vimshotri Mahadashas.
Exactly.
People know. Okay.
And Bhukti.
Bhukti, okay.
So things get very specific.
Wow, okay.
But it's enough to know your core Dharma type to help you know the general direction that your life is moving in.
Okay. Wow. Thank you so much.
All right.
For coming today, Simone.
Namaskar.
See you next time, very soon. Bye-bye.